Alright guys, today we're going to be covering a game from Tata Steel 2012. The game will be Radjabov versus David Navara, and forgive me if I butchered any of those pronunciations. The game started off with Queen's Pawn game, d4, Knight f6, c4, and g6. Black is showing his intent to go into a King's Indian type position, fianchettoing the dark squared bishop, but white has other plans. Knight f3, black continuing, bishop g7, and g3. White showing that he's not going to go into standard King's Indian with knight c3, but is instead going to fianchetto his own bishop. Now black decides to transpose into a neo-Grunfeld defense with d5, staking his own claim in the center. White ignores this, continues on with his own plan. Bishop g2, continuing with the fianchettoing of the light square bishop. And black opts to immediately remove the tension in the center with d takes c4. Now, this is an interesting move. A lot of times people prefer to keep the tension in the center, and especially when they want to keep their center pawns. They don't want to give the opponent a center majority. But black's plan here is going to be to control the center with his pieces to try and restrict white's pawns with his own piece pressure. White plays knight a3, just going to recapture this pawn. There's nothing black can do to prevent that. Black has no way of actually forcing, holding onto the pawn by force. It's just not possible. So black does the next best thing, simply developing. Letting white take his time to capture the pawn while he gets all his pieces out and is going to try to control the center with them. White takes, and black plays bishop u6. Now, bishop e6 is interesting as it blocks the e pawn, black's e pawn, but it does a couple of things. First of all, it gains tempo on the knight, develops the bishop, and it's also going to be used as a rerouting square for the bishop. The bishop's not going to stay on e6, and eventually the e-pawn will be freed. The bishop is simply going to reroute into a square that will be used in order to restrict white's center. White plays b3. White has to waste time to defend that knight, and black plays a5. Now, a5 is interesting. a5 is just claiming, is basically restricting white's ability to play on the queen side. Black has options such as a4 to disrupt white's queenside pawn structure, and black is also locking down this b4 square, making it difficult for white to expand on the queen side. White plays bishop b2, fianchettoing his bishop. Fianchettoing his bishop when adding extra support to d4. And black plays bishop d5. This was his intention with bishop e6. When he with the bishop on b5, the e4 square is even more secure. White's going to have a hard time expanding with the center, and if his central pawns can't move, then the central pawn majority isn't that strong. That's his black's intention. Use piece pressure to counteract the central pawn majority. White plays rook c1, using one of the main assets in his position, which is the semi-open c-file. Shared there are a couple of pieces in the way at the moment, but later in the game, once these pieces go, white will have strong pressure on the c-pawn. Black castles, understandably not wanting to keep his king in the center, and white plays a3. a3 is an interesting move as it's multi-purpose. For one thing, it's guarding the b4 square, adding extra support there, trying to limit black's stranglehold on it, and also simultaneously defending against any a4 structural threats. Now, if black decides to play a4, white can respond with b4, and he'll have a strong grip on the c5 square and active pieces. For this reason, black decides to go with queen c. Now black's minor pieces are all developed, so the next logical step is to get his queen in the action. Since black wants to focus on piece pressure here rather than using his pawns, he wants to use his pieces such as queen to help restrict white's central development and help put pressure on white's position. This is going to be done to the c8, h3 diagonal. This is the best path for the black queen to get into the position. It's clear and open, and black queen has multiple options. White castle is once again, understandably, not one to keep his king in the center. And black plays queen e6. Now queen e6 it's a good move. It's interesting because the queen is helping black restrict white's e4 pawn. You'll see now black has 3 pieces on the e4 square, and white is going to be hard pressed to find a way to push his central pawn majority. And also, simultaneously, this queen and bishop form a battery on this now weakened b3 square. You can see the weakness of white's a3 move now. Now this b3 square could be weak if future potential threats might be b5, where the knight would have to move and it would expose the b3 square. That's not exactly the biggest threat in this particular position, but it's something white always has to calculate with each of his moves. White plays knight g5 now. Now knight g5 is a very strong move. It's showing the weakness of black's intentions with the queen. With bringing the queen out into the position, it can be used as a tempo-gaining device. And now the queen is forced to move, and it's going to allow white the time he needs to get his position going. The queen has to move, so the queen opts to move to g4. And you might think that that queen g5 is a threat, and white's just going to simply retreat the knight. Black's going to gain a tempo, but no. White chooses a very sharp move, e4. e4 is a tactical move. If black, a lot of you are probably thinking that queen takes g5 would be good, but that creates a difficult position for black. Let's take a look at that. Queen takes g5. White has f4. Now the queen has to move, but it doesn't really have a good option to move to. The best option in this position would be queen h6. White's gonna take the bishop now material is equal, and force the knight retreat. Knight can't retreat to a7, obviously, because the a5 pawn would hang, and so it's got to retreat to the back rank. So now let's take a look at this position. Some people are probably thinking that, white has doubled isolated pawns. We're all taught when we first start that these things are generally weaknesses and we should avoid them. But in this position, they kind of prove to be a strength. The double isolated pawns are actually providing good space advantage for white, and the semi-open file that the doubled pawns provide is going to allow white to gain more pressure on the position with moves like rook e1 and moves like rook e5, using that excellent outpost square for the knight and gaining pressure on black's position. And if we take a look at black's position, we can see that, the queen's very inactive. What's it doing on h6? And this knight on d8. They're not really doing anything. They're spectator pieces. The rooks aren't connected, and black's very, very passive. Which is why black opted to go for queen takes d1. Just exchanging, basically, all the pieces off. Just simplifying the position, basically. White's going to recapture with the f rook in order to maintain his pressure on this semi-open c file.